Sure is. Okay, boys. Main event time. UFC Fight Night. Almeida versus Lewis, headlined by Jailton Almeida, stepping up in probably what is the biggest fight of his career, taking on Derrick, the Black Beast Lewis. Here we go. Let us set this up. The A side is Jailton Almeida, Maladinho, the 32-year-old out of Bahia, Brazil. His pro record stands at 19-2 coming into this weekend, with 19 of his wins. All 19 of his wins. Again, similar to Bonfim, have been finishes. 7 of them knockouts, 12 of them submissions. He's only lost twice, 1 decision, and he has been knocked out once, very early in his career, in what was only the 5th fight of his career for a promotion called Katana Fight. It was in 2017. He got knocked out in the first round at the 16-second mark, so he got caught, guys. He's dropped one other decision back in 2018 in a promotion called Chuto Brazil, but he's been on a tear since. He's undefeated in the UFC. He's now 5-0 under the UFC banner after winning on Contender Series. He'll be standing across from the UFC heavyweight knockout king in Derrick the Black Beast Lewis, the 38-year-old out of Houston, Texas, USA. His pro record stands at 27-11 with 1 no contest. 22 of his 27 wins have been knockouts. Like I said, he is the heavyweight knockout king. At one point, he was the UFC knockout king, but I believe he has been displaced by one Matt the Immortal Brown. He's coming off of a TKO victory over Marcos Rogerio de Lima, a 33-second first-round finish that started with a flying knee out of the corner from Derrick Lewis. Just incredible stuff. At 38 years old, he's still finding ways to electrify crowds and audiences. All right, Omar, start us off this time. Give us your take and your pick of Jailton Maladinho Almeida stepping up to the biggest fight of his career, taking on the legend, the active living legend in Derrick Lewis.
It's very interesting, and I think one of the big things that may not be getting talked about enough is the fact that Derrick Lewis is stepping into this fight on relatively short notice. I think obviously, like with almost any Derrick Lewis fight or every Derrick Lewis fight, there's obviously going to be an opportunity for him to put somebody's lights out. Very good with his uppercuts, very good with his strikes in general, but his game is very noticeable, right? There's not a lot of tricks to his game. There's not a lot of crazy things that tend to happen, and I say this full well knowing that he just flying kneed this man in his last fight. But there's something to be said about doing dumb shit and hoping it works, and then what your actual game is. And I think the game of Derrick Lewis is one that is pretty well known. It's just a game that is very difficult for people to stop, especially when they have relatively limited skill sets. Jailton Almeida, I don't think is that dude. Jailton Almeida might be one of the more well-rounded fighters and one of the most dangerous fighters we've seen on the roster right now. I think his come-up has been very strong. I think his performances have been exceptional almost all the way around. I think the thing that he's missing more than anything at this point is the names that get attached to it. So Rosenstrike, I think, it might have been a good litmus test as to what we're looking at for the end of a Derrick Lewis fight. Derrick Lewis, I think, has better takedown defense than Jairzinho Rosenstrike does, but I think in the end it'll all be for naught anyway. I'm going to go Jailton Almeida by submission, round 2.
I will go next. I agree. I think that this is going to be a sort of passing of the torch fight for the UFC heavyweight division, where Derrick Lewis really, even though he is coming off of a nice TKO victory, he has lost. That snapped a 3-fight losing streak for Derrick Lewis, having lost 4 of his last 6. In 3 of those 4 losses, he got finished himself. And I think this one is going to kind of put a stamp on the case file of Derrick Lewis, where Jailton Almeida is really going to ascend into the upper echelon now of the UFC heavyweight division. The man is just a machine at heavyweight. He was even scarier at 205. But I see him, staying away from Derrick Lewis's power, getting this man to the ground. Once Derrick Lewis is on his back, he can have a few bursts of energy and explode to try to get back to his feet. But I think Almeida is a giant and is also a ground fighting expert, truly. And I see him submitting Derrick Lewis. I will say a first round submission victory for Jailton Almeida. Mark?
Yep, Jailton is a minus 500 favorite here. Derrick Lewis is plus 370. Maybe it would have been closer without short notice, maybe not. The height is the same, the reach is the same, so you think of Derrick Lewis as like the big black beast, but these boys are the same exact size. Obviously a little more girth on Derrick. Personally, I wish we would have got the original fight here between Almeida and Curtis Blades. I loved that test for Almeida. Obviously, I know Derrick Lewis has beaten Curtis Blades, but I just don't feel like he provides the same challenges because we know what Jailton Almeida wants to do. He is Brazilian Habib. He wants to take you down, set you up methodically, maul you, and submit you. And against the wrestling of Blades, we would have gotten a lot of questions answered. But Lewis is not really that guy in terms of the wrestling pedigree. Now, granted, on the pluses for Lewis, he is not easy to take down. As you said, he's harder to take down than, say, a Rosenstrike. He is not easy to hold down. Same thing, harder than a guy like that. He is a very large man, and he carries monster knockout power for every second that this fight takes place on the feet. So that is the wild card that he brings that Jailton will have to navigate. But I think he'll do it. I think his type of wrestling where he is not necessarily out at range, shooting doubles, risking that counter coming, but instead he's more pushing his way inside, leaning on you, adjusting his weight on you, working for trips. I think that's historically the kind of wrestling that Derrick Lewis struggles more with. And I think Almeida's going to have success with it. And I think he ends up on top of Derrick Lewis or on Lewis's back, depending on how they fall, by the end of this first round. And I don't think he lets Derrick Lewis escape. I will say Jailton Almeida, round 1, sub.